If you drive 1-2 hours to the outskirts of cities like Beijing or Shanghai, you'll encounter some strange sights. The buildings are built close together with modern facilities, but are almost completely uninhabited. The wide avenues are deserted, and many of the massive architectural structures are inactive. Further on is a forest of unfinished and abandoned houses. These are known as China's ghost cities. It is noteworthy that they have been around for a long time, and can appear anywhere in the country. Hey, Yumen, Kunming, Pudong, Thamestown, Shanghai's London, Ujiapu, China's Manhattan, and a long list of other names are being added. What happened here? For many years now, people have been baffled as international media outlets have been reporting that at least 65 million homes, equivalent to 1/5 of China's housing, are abandoned. According to Nikkei, at the end of last year, the housing inventory in China was nearly 5 billion square meters. Let's assume each apartment has an area of 100 mabitu and is occupied by 3 people. That number of houses would be enough to accommodate about 150 million people. Imagine the population of France is approximately 65 million people. This means that the entire population of 2 countries, such as France, still cannot fill all the vacant houses. This is a typical ghost city. A district on the eastern coast of Hangzhou, China, is an upscale urban area with all the charm of Paris, except for the crowds. This scene makes it difficult to imagine what a high-class city might be like. Built in 2007 agricultural land, Thien Du Than targets wealthy clients and is intended to house approximately 10. However, wealthy people weren't keen on living there. The few residents who do exist here, conversely, are those who have no other choice. Located hundreds of kilometers west of Beijing is the Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region of China. A district of Ordos City located in this area was once one of the most famous ghost cities in China. In the late 1900s, due to large coal reserves, private mining companies were licensed to mine here. The influx of businesses, along with immigrants seeking work in the coal mines, has transformed the once desolate Inner Mongolia into a bustling region. At that time, the local government decided to develop Kangbathap into a future city with 1 million inhabitants, creating a new cultural, economic, and political center. Many people believe the government has been overly optimistic. But it seems local leaders don't think so, because the Chinese government is pushing ahead with a plan to build 400 new cities in 20 years, and the city could be a part of that. In 2005, they began investing hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate and other infrastructure. 2009, Kangbathap witnessed a construction boom. More than 50 office buildings, schools, and shopping malls have sprung up one after another in the middle of the desert. However, things turned out exactly as predicted. In its first 5 years, Kangbathap had no more than 30. Its isolated location, high property tax, and poor construction quality are some of the reasons why people are reluctant to live here. There were times when house prices plummeted from 104.70 per square. Yet selling apartments remained difficult. It wasn't until early 20, when China relocated some schools here, along with numerous housing incentives, that this number increased. But it's still insignificant compared to what was spent. Of course, both Thien Du Than and Kangbathap are merely consequences of misguided planning. From the late 19th, China experienced a construction boom as the government implemented a series of policies to promote urbanization. Urbanization is the way China has generated its miraculous growth over the past 30 years. And of course, it cannot be denied that urbanization has contributed to making China the world's second largest economic power. However, it also comes with a price. Imagine, in 1978, the urban population of China was only 18%. By 2012, this figure had reached 50%. By 2022, and it is projected to reach 100% by 2025. Looking back at history, it took England 120 years to increase its urbanization rate to 20%, while it took the United States 80 years. Yet China only needed 22 years, said chairman of the Chinese Geographical Society, Professor Lu Dadao. And of course, to meet that number, the Chinese government has to urgently urbanize even rural areas. Agricultural land was confiscated for construction. The government has launched many large-scale, sometimes excessive, real estate projects. According to The Economist in January 2023, China built 15 million new homes each year, 5 times more than the US and Europe combined. The country's population is experiencing negative growth. According to The Economist in January 2023, China built 15 million new homes each year, 5 times more than the US and Europe combined. Meanwhile, the country's population is experiencing negative growth. In 1994, China also implemented budgetary decentralization, granting local governments greater financial autonomy, especially in land management. Local authorities will generate significant revenue through the sale of land to project developers and taxes from businesses in the area, with limited tax collecting powers. 1/3 of the revenue of Chinese cities comes from selling land to real estate companies. Along with the increasing importance placed on urbanization rates, many local leaders are willing to grant permits for projects without considering the actual needs of society. Their goal is also to shape the appearance of urban growth, paving the way for advancement. These mangrove forests therefore sprang up like mushrooms on an unprecedented scale and at an unprecedented rate. According to estimates by Goldman Sachs, real estate-related activities once accounted for nearly 1/3 of the Chinese economy. But that's not the only reason. If local authorities can blindly grant permits for real estate projects, then real estate corporations shouldn't be able to so easily throw money away without researching the needs of society. They must have their own calculations. Of course, investing in real estate is never a loss. Most people in China, and even in Vietnam now, believe that, because land is limited, while demand is constantly increasing. This idea is being increasingly promoted by real estate companies. House prices were somehow driven up very quickly, creating a false sense of security for many people who rush to buy houses as an investment. After buying, they will leave the house vacant and wait until house prices rise before reselling it. The real estate bubble is therefore getting bigger every day. Statistics show that over 90% of households in China are homeowners, and more than 20% of homeowners in China own more than one house. Of course, among the tens of millions of abandoned homes, theirs is certainly one of them. Most real estate companies in China operate on a model that relies heavily on borrowing to finance development, believing that as long as they continue to grow, they can repay their debts. But since seeing the overheated real estate sector and fearing that the rampant borrowing habits of real estate companies could create a time bomb in the economy, Beijing began implementing policies to tighten lending. Chinese President Xi Jinping has put forward the policy of housing for living, not for speculation. Regulations on home purchases and capital flows into the real estate market have simultaneously tightened. Real estate companies are stuck, unable to borrow new money to pay off old debts. Since more than 50 Chinese real estate companies have teetered on the brink of collapse due to massive debt burdens, with many maturing debts remaining unpaid. These include 2 of the country's largest corporations, China Evergrande and Country Garden. To talk about Evergrande, the group has been developing in China for the past 10 years. They have developed in 286. Real estate business has made the group's chairman a billionaire. However, the 300 billion debt and 6 million undelivered apartments came as a shock to those who had placed their trust in them. These are Evergrande's unfinished residential complexes in Locan. And who knows when they will actually be handed over to these people. Large cities like Beijing or Shanghai often have strict regulations regarding land resource management. Therefore, real estate companies like Evergrande often seek out smaller cities with more relaxed policies and more land available. And Luan is one of them. When this corporation began buying land in Locan around 2011, it was still an underdeveloped town. They began constructing apartment buildings, commercial buildings, amusement park, movie theater, and even an electric vehicle manufacturing plant here. Expectations for a modern city of the future were painted and disseminated widely in the media. Buyers all believe that the value of these projects will increase forever. even if something unexpected happens. They think the government will protect them, because real estate companies like Evergrande are a lucrative source of tax revenue for the local government. In the first half of 2023, Loon's land sales reached 1. But perhaps too much of anything isn't good. Real estate projects have proliferated far beyond the demand for actual home buyers. House prices have been pushed up far beyond their true value. And real estate corporations borrow too much money to invest. Until the real estate bubble begins to burst, its impact will spread throughout the entire economy. For many in the middle class, this crisis poses a real threat to their Chinese dream. Real estate used to be the primary means of investing wealth in China, with 70% of household assets tied to real estate. You can imagine how devastating this collapse will be for them. It threatens the jobs and savings of millions of households. Imagine that at its peak, real estate accounted for 25% of China's GDP. So, what will happen now? The Chinese government is still bearing the scars of the pandemic. Statistics show that local government debt in China reached 92 trillion yuan, equivalent to 76% of economic output in 22. Current civil servant salaries have been cut in many provinces. Creating jobs for young people in China is also a major headache for the government, with youth unemployment reaching approximately 2020. No other country has developed as rapidly and built as extensively as China. This serves as a lesson about the dependence of the Chinese economy on this industry. And it's also a lesson for Vietnam. So what path does China have to escape this darkness? In fact, the Chinese government has made efforts to revive these ghost cities in various ways. For example, Zhengdong City in Henan Province rose from ruin after the local government paid a Taiwanese phone manufacturer to open a factory in the city. The factory attracted many job seekers and eventually employed 200. Once a ghost city, has gradually transformed into an industrial hub. Similarly, the new town of Zhujiang in Guangzhou province is also waiting to recruit workers. The upcoming high-speed rail line is expected to kickstart the city's revitalization process. It is quite possible that, in the short term, not all of these ghost cities will share the same fate. In addition, President Xi Jinping is also formulating new strategies. The state will buy back struggling private real estate projects, improve them if necessary, and convert them into rental housing or resell them at low prices. The goal is to increase the proportion of affordable housing provided by the state. This is also how Xi Jinping expands state control over the economy and curbs the private sector. However, the cost of these plans would be enormous, potentially reaching around 1.4. Government documents reveal that an initial 6 million affordable housing units are planned to be added over the next 5 years. To initiate this approach, the People's Bank of China allocated 500 billion yuan, equivalent to approximately 70 billion, to provide low-interest financing for policy banks. Experts believe that Xi Jinping may change his mind. Real estate will no longer play such an excessively large role in the future. Areas like manufacturing and high technology are where he can compete with the United States. According to a proposal by President Xi Jinping, the Chinese real estate market will be returned to its former roots in certain aspects. As for the specific, let's wait and see.